It's rather early in the morning, but it's time to talk about soju. Now, soju is a distilled liquor made from grain or sweet potatoes, widely consumed by South Koreans from its iconic green bottles. With fiery but slightly sweet and uncomplicated undertones, soju is the spirit of choice on most occasions, whether it's to celebrate or drown your sorrows, socialise with friends, or simply pair with grilled or stir-fried dishes. Now, its rather low price point of around $1.50 also makes it a beverage of choice. And, well, in recent months, though, soju has been undergoing a major image overhaul from being cheap and widely available to an exclusive delicacy, with master brewers and celebrities launching their own premium sojus, which have been selling out at prices 10 times higher than the humble green bottle. So it's all the rage in Korea these days, and we want to hear all about it in our dialogue this week. For this, we're joined by Andres Sanchez-Brown, Korea correspondent at Agencia F Spain news agency, and Brandon Hill, founder of Tokkisoju. Very warm welcome to you both, and we have a lot to talk about here. Unfortunately, no soju between us, but, well, my first question to you, Andres. Now, how long has soju been enjoyed in South Korea, and what's really the difference between the traditional and the more modern variations that we're seeing these days?
Soju, traditional, what you will call distilled soju, dates back to around the 13th century, when during the Mongol invasions, Koreans learned distillation techniques from them and started elaborating this drink that was basically distilled from a sort of rice wine. You would ferment grain and then distill this drink to obtain what was called soju back then. The newer version of it, those green bottles that you were mentioning, stem from a law that was passed in 1965 to control rice. And because so much rice was used in the production of soju, Korea actually told distillers that they had to come up with a new recipe. And this recipe was basically using ethanol that was made through starches of not rice, but in this case, sweet potato or tapioca. And then there was water added to it, and sweeteners and flavors. So we can call this new, cheaper version of soju, which is widely popular now, diluted soju.
Right, and Brandon, well, you have your own soju company, really. And, well, tell us about your first experience with soju.
My first experience happened during my time at University of Hawaii. My dorm mate was studying from Korea, and he introduced me to not just soju, but Korean food and anju culture, and we instantly became close, and I just kind of fell in love with the Korean culture and Seoul culture around it as well.
So really, from that first taste of soju in university, how did you end up developing your own in New York?
Oh man, that's quite a long story, but I'll keep it short for your program. In 2011, I moved to South Korea to learn traditional Korean soju techniques, and that was Year of the Rabbit, and that's kind of where Tokki gets its name from, was my time learning traditional Korean alcohol. And from there, I moved to New York, and New York's Korean food scene had kind of elevated, that you had places that were getting Michelin stars like Danji and Jungshik, and the connotation for Americans was Korean food was very healthy, very high end. And one of my friends in Brooklyn was opening a Korean restaurant, and he asked me to start making their house soju, and it just kind of organically grew from there. And I think soju just kind of found me that way, which was great.
And Brandon, well, vanilla seems to be a key ingredient in most of your products, and you use very high quality, locally produced rice as well to make your soju. So what really inspired these choices of ingredients?
Yeah, I've heard vanilla a lot. I think a lot to what Anders was talking about earlier. Prior to the 1960s, soju was made from rice and had a really rich history, and I wanted to kind of celebrate that and kind of show what I learned. The vanilla and the sweetness and the comes from the rice. We use chapsal, which chapsal is like the sweet, sticky rice. I wanted to use a sweeter version because Korean pop culture with the green bottle is now used to the sweeteners and kind of associating soju with those artificial sugars and sweeteners. So I wanted to use a sweet soju without using sugar or additives. So that's why we use chapsal, which was common during like the Shilla and Chosun dynasty. And we do everything in-house in traditional Korean style fermentation, but we've kind of bring it to the modern realm by using new, more scientific techniques.
And Andres, now the image of the green bottle does still bear very strongly in our minds when we think of soju. But the thing is, we have so many options these days, from the traditional green, well, the regular green ones that we think about, the fruity ones, and now these premium star-studded types of soju. So when do you think this diversification of soju really started?
This law that we were talking about, the 1965 law, was to say canceled in 1999, if I'm not mistaken. So from there, little by little, the problem was that all these traditional distilled soju producers weren't in business anymore. So, you know, you had to start building all this infrastructure to get people interested in distilling soju the traditional way again. But, you know, little by little, just like alcohol industry has actually changed a lot within the past 40 years. And I think one key point in this sense is actually that the industry is appealing way more to women than it did before. That would be, for example, one reason why producers of the traditional green bottle soju actually started lowering the alcohol content, because you know, more women were actually engaging in consumption in this case, and just, you know, as your customers, your target groups get more and more diversified, then producers of the green bottles actually started thinking, well, you know what, a lot of people don't actually enjoy the taste of our product that much. Why don't we start adding even more artificial flavor to it? And this could be pomegranate. You have all kinds of tastes today, all kinds of flavors to the green bottles. But also, as the customer base grew and became more sophisticated, then a lot of people, and you, as you pointed out, celebrities or big soju green bottle soju producers like Height started producing this distilled soju again, appealing to people that are actually looking for a drink that has a better taste, a better smell, that doesn't have to be, you know, finished on the spot, and that not necessarily does have to get you very drunk, right? It was all about, you know, people wanting to enjoy soju in a different way.
Right, so it no longer has to be something that's quite repulsive and you just want to get it down as quickly as possible. But Andres, now soju, it has still been a very iconic drink for many Koreans across all age groups, really. And, well, it's now arguably a national liquor that's very widely available and, of course, very, very cheap. So where's really the market for more expensive, very premium soju then?
Oh, well, I think there is more market for premium soju. And actually, Brandon just mentioned it. You know, suddenly people want different experiences. You know, soju, green bottle soju, is ingrained within, let's say, a part of what it means to be Korean nowadays. People are still going to keep drinking the green bottle, I think, because, you know, you associate it with I don't know, moments, little things in your life. It can be you having drinks with your college friends, or you celebrating something with your family. That's always going to be there, even though for people that actually don't like the flavor that much. I think that's not going to change. But on the other hand, people that actually like the taste of a nice rice-based distilled drink, that actually has a lot of space for growth. People want different experiences. We can see just for example, as the number of single malt whiskey bars has multiplied in Korea for the past decade. I think it's multiplied by 10. Within the past decade also, the number of companies actually producing distilled soju has doubled. That tells you that there is room for growth, and there's people interested in enjoying a proper soju drink in this country, and also overseas. I think in the next few years we'll see a growth, as Hallyu gets more and more popular globally, so does food and drinks. So I definitely think that we're going to see growth for distilled soju beverages domestically and globally as well.
Definitely there's huge cultural significance to soju here in South Korea. But Brandon, while it's quite fascinating that Tokkisoju actually started in New York and then it made its way over into the Korean market, and there were people looking for it and trying to get it online because it wasn't available in South Korea. So what do you think really distinguished your product from other soju varieties in the market that South Koreans began importing it?
I think we had the advantage of starting in New York, where a lot of people didn't have the connotation of it being kind of a low-end alcohol. It was still kind of new to Americans. And so we were able to kind of showcase it on an elevated platform from the beginning, and it was accepted. And I think as far as the Korean market goes, we had a huge advantage starting in New York, where New York is, such an iconic trend-setting city. And soju doesn't have a delineation on where you need to make it, where soju does not have to be made in Korea. So I think it was just interesting that for many Koreans that something like this was happening outside of Korea for the first time. So I think that was a kind of a massive advantage for us, just the intrigue of a foreigner creating it at the beginning.
And Brandon, it seems to be, it seems that Tokkisoju was very well received overseas as well, globally really. Tokkisoju Black Label, it won gold in the New York International Spirits Competition, if I'm correct. So what really draws non-Koreans to soju, do you think, compared to other types of liquors?
Yeah, we're lucky that all of our spirits have been really accepted, not just the soju, but everything we've made so far has at least gotten a gold medal in the international competition. And I think because Westerners are very adventurous eaters and drinkers, it's not unusual for the American diet to have sushi and sake, or European wines and European food. They're very adventurous eaters. So I think the intrigue and the initial spark of trying something new is really exciting for Westerners. So I think that's where the initial appeal came from.
And Andres, do you think that the high-end soju market is going to expand? I mean, and what about the traditional green bottle soju? Are people going to keep on drinking that? You did mention this earlier, but how do you think those two types of soju are going to fare in the Korean market?
Well, as I say, the increasing, let's say, search for sophistication in Korea. You're seeing more and more people. Actually, Brandon just spoke about being adventurers. I think Koreans are becoming more and more adventurers too. And unfortunately, a part of becoming adventurers is rediscovering a drink that was essentially Korean, like soju, like distilled soju. Now it's a time for Koreans to rediscover this heritage and enjoy a drink that when you're in search of something, of a perfume, of something that smells maybe like fruit or flowers, and you want that taste that came from fermented drink. You want that purity, not the artificial sweeteners that are in the green bottles. And that said, of course, we've seen actually how the green bottle market has not only kept growing in Korea, but also overseas. So I don't think the green bottle market is going anywhere as of now, as I said, because it is already a part of Korea's modern culture. And when it comes to overseas, you can walk into many supermarkets now in Europe, for example, and see green bottles all over the place, and they're not sold cheap, by the way, not as cheap as in Korea. I don't think the green bottles are going anywhere. They're here to stay. And as with distilled soju, I think there's a lot of space to grow. Right now, I think the taste for the appetite for sophistication is quite big right now in Korea. So I just hope that this industry actually, maybe with a little government support and good local networking as well, can keep growing and bring delicious drinks to the Korean market and the global markets.
And Brandon, well, Tokkisoju is now widely available in South Korea in convenience stores, I believe, and it's expected that the market for premium soju is going to grow bigger and bigger. So how do you aim to stay ahead of the competition? And just before we go, can you share a recipe with us for all of us who want to enjoy a soju cocktail over the weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. I think right now, with the premium soju market staying, I don't really see it as competition. I think that it's great that more brands are coming to market and giving light to the category, and I think it's continuing to grow. It's continuing to get global support. I mean, if you look at this panel right now, you have two non-Koreans talking about their love of soju, which if that doesn't say that it's flowing globally, I don't know what does. So I think that's great. Right now, I think more brands, more styles is a good thing. I don't really see it as competition in that regard. I more just want to bring it to the global market and have it understood. And I think bringing more brands into that equation is only beneficial at this point. Well, we make a handful of spirits as far as recipes go, but we have a bar in Hongdae in Seoul where we make all kinds of cocktails and flavored elixirs based on Korean ingredients. So I would definitely divert you to my bartenders. They're much better mixologists than I do. I'm kind of a purist. I love drinking our spirits neat for the most part. Tokki Gold and Tokki White, I drink neat or just with food. And I love the Tokki Black with, actually fruit juices is my favorite. I drink with orange juice, kombucha, and it makes a mean Bloody Mary as well.
Well, you might be a purist, but perhaps you should take Andreas's advice and try and rediscover the soju a little bit more, and maybe this weekend. And well, I'm afraid this is where we'll have to wrap up this interview today. But that was Andreas Sanchez-Brown, Korea correspondent of Agencia FS Spain news agency, and Brandon Hill, founder of Tokkisoju. Thank you both so much for your time today.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us here.